There's a researcher and author named Frederic Laloux, and he has researched hundreds of organizations looking at their organization principles. In some of the most modern organizations, he's found there are three principles that kept recurring over and over. In this video, I'll tell you what those three principles are. This is Modern Leadership Concepts, where we bring you concepts, inspiration, and resources to help you become a better leader. Before we start, I'd just like to say that some of these concepts are a little bit fuzzy. Maybe you think they're new age. I would just ask you to withhold your judgment for a bit and try to think if there is actually something behind this. None of these principles would the author ever encourage you to just take straight out of the box, but to see how do they fit in your organization, what can you learn, and how can you apply them so that you can become a better leader. With that in mind, let's talk about the first principle. The first principle that he found common in these organizations has to do with self-management. Now, self-management has gotten kind of a bad rap. It's associated with no control, with people doing whatever they want, and with just these vague ideas. And you will find that actually there's quite a lot of structure that is implied here. A lot of leaders are trying to empower people to do what is the best work, and that's good. We came from a time where there was a lot of micromanagement, but empowerment in itself, if you think about it, is a little bit, maybe you'd even say condescending. Like, I have power, and you can thank me because I'm going to give you power now. And it isn't really, maybe it isn't so the real way that we want to relate one human to another. In his research, he found that these organizations, it wasn't that there were fewer bosses or that there was this flat organizational hierarchy. There is, in fact, in most cases, there are no bosses. He gives an example of a 14,000 person nursing organization. There's actually no bosses. So there's no head of HR, there's no head of strategy, there's no head of anything. There's no bosses. This is self-management. This is empowerment, maybe taken to the next level of how do people take responsibility. So there's no formal structure in this kind of organization, but there is a lot of structure. It requires training. How do we deal with conflict? How do we make decisions? How much money can we spend? Who can spend money? How much salary does someone get? All of these things require training for the organization so that they know how to make these decisions. But it isn't made from on top and then dribbled down. It's truly self-management of people. Leaders that have moved to this kind of organization, there's a common phrase that they say, and that is, I've gotten my life back. That before, there's like so much pressure put on leaders that they have to have the right answer and they have to come up with this marvelous sales strategy or whatever the case may be. It's like this pressure now goes away from leaders, and no leader should be required to have that kind of pressure on them. So that's the first principle, which is self-management. When we're going to hire someone, we write out a job description, we give it a title, and then we announce this job listing on the internet, for example. And then we look for someone that meets that job description. But it turns out that we don't hire this job description, we hire a person. And that's what the second principle that Frederic Laloux talks about is wholeness. And again, we need to be careful about that word. It's a little bit fuzzy word. But in fact, we hire a whole person. We don't just hire the fact that they can they can do a great job as a nurse or as a production worker or as a sales executive or project manager. We hire the whole person. And so we should be aware of this, and how can we incorporate the use of this entire person in our organization. When we hire a person, every person, you, me, every person comes with both their baggage and their experience, with their negative things and with their skills that they can offer. And we want to make use of this whole entire person and allow them to thrive as a whole entire person. Perhaps we hire a nurse, and we think that this nurse is actually, I worked with a nurse that this was their experience, a nurse that was hired, and they were there to give a shot, for example. It wasn't actually in this case. But we can limit seeing them as they are a nurse, they do this function. And so I mean, what would they know about human resources or finance or customer service, computers, decision making? But it turns out that they're like this whole person. They're not just a nurse. They're perhaps they're married, and their spouse, and they have two incomes, and they have bills that they need to pay. They have perhaps purchased a house. They've looked at what interest rates there are. They purchase a car. They have to make payments on that, or they need to finance it. They need to think about insurance and what insurance coverage. This isn't just a nurse. This is a whole person that you're hiring. This whole person also has an 80-year-old mother. This 80-year-old mother has visited a clinic similar to the one that the nurse is working at. So they also know something about the customer experience, and they can give input there as well. Maybe they just come out of school, and they've been trained on the latest technology, and they can give input there as well. So we should not just hire the person and limit their ability to contribute in the narrow scope of what they said on the job that they applied for, but how can we use this entire person? They know how to make purchasing decisions. They do it all the time. We should make use of that. On the other hand, every one of us comes with your own struggles. There's some things that you're not so good at. Maybe you're good at being a nurse, but maybe you're not so good at following through, or maybe you're not so good at some other aspect. And there's organizations actually that have taken the time and recognize this so much that they've taken the time to document it, to say, this person, they're good at this and this and this, and this person, this same person, they're not so good at these other things. So when I'm working with this person, I know, okay, I can really count on them for this, but yeah, this is not their strength to manage the details of a project, for example. That's just not what they do well. But they can do this other thing really well. This is an attribute that they have. And so we should just accept it. Okay, people are really good at some things, not so good at some other things. They have a lot of experience, and how can we hire this whole person? How can we bring in this whole person into the experience? The thing is, it comes for free. We already pay them a salary. They already have the benefits. It's a whole thing. They're there. They're just waiting to contribute. And so we should embrace this idea of wholeness, like a whole person. How can we make use of this whole person and allow them to contribute as properly as they possibly can? The leaders of modern organizations that this author found think of their organizations not as machines and not as hierarchies, but as actually as living organisms, like the trees that you see behind me. these kinds of organizations, they're very flexible, they're very resilient, they're very robust, and they're very quick to change. There's not a need to do a major reorganization every 3 years of completely changing things, because in fact the organization may change on a daily basis. And these organizations, they change because they at a local level, the team that is working in that area, they realize that actually this is a better way to work, or this is a better way to serve our customer. This is a better way to fulfill the purpose of the organization. And so they will change. And that change just happened and nobody else even knew about it. But the customer gets a better experience, perhaps, gets a better product, gets a cheaper product, because of changes that were just made in the organization as they were realized. The author talks about this as to sense into purpose. That's the words that he uses, and again, a little bit of fluffy words, we might call it, but imagine that if everyone in your organization knew what is the purpose of your organization, like what is the cause that you're really, what is the thing that's bigger than all of you that you're really trying to support here? What are you trying to accomplish? And if everyone in the organization knew that, and everyone had the ability to make the decisions, whatever decisions was required in order to move that way, then it doesn't require a lot of management making decisions that take a long time, because these decisions can be made on a local level. It can be made in an instant, and we can immediately change the organization and find a way to serve that customer better, or to fulfill the purpose of the organization better. Another thing is that these are very innovative organizations, because they're free to innovate. If they decide, okay, we should try this thing, they will just try it, and if it works, then these good ideas will spread, because that they will spread to the other parts of the organization. And if they don't work, then they die. And these small changes can very easily propagate throughout the organization into not best practice by definition, that this is what you do, but instead, like, this is what serves the organization best, and so this is how we should change. So I really suggest that you take a look at this book. This is the book. The name here, let's see if I can find the author's name. Looks like I can't. At the top there you can see Frederic Laloux. I would also say get the illustrated version of this. There's another one. It's quite thick. It kind of slogs through a lot more. This is a much better book. Take this short one. There's also some audio versions available, and I will include some links in the description of the video. So I'd really encourage you. This is a book that you really should read if you're at all interested in these kinds of concepts. So I'd like to hear your comments. Have you read this book? What is your takeaway from it? How does this apply to your organization, or is it even possible? I know that it's possible to make comments about these kind of fluffy words, and that's the problem with words, is they get a connotation around them. So we don't need to hear. I can make my own jokes about these words, but 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 I really think that there's something underneath this, and it gives a lot of really good examples in the book of companies from all industries that have moved to these kinds of concepts. So I'd really like to hear what your thoughts are and how you think this could be applicable in your own organization. So this is Todd with Modern Leadership Concepts, and until next time, I wish you well.